Chapter 14, The Bride and the Conduit of Glory. Every river in this book has been running toward one sea, the division of the kingdom, the two dispersions, the long migrations through Europe and through Africa, the convergence in America, the dispensational unfolding of Shem and Ham and Japheth, the humbling of Judah and the warning against her pride. All of it has been moving toward a single destination. That destination is not a place on a map, it is a wedding. We have already seen Judah's function in the kingdom, the conduit through whom the worship of the nations ascends to the Father, the cupbearer who fills the cup and holds it out rather than drinking it herself. But we have described that function from the outside, as doctrine. This chapter steps inside it. Here we ask what the bride will actually experience at the marriage supper of the Lamb, and in what kind of body she will experience it, for the calling and the body are given together, and neither can be understood without the other. When the Father gave the Son a body, he did not draw it from the powerful or the celebrated. He drew it from Judah, and not from Judah's kings in their glory, but from the root, the humble stock of David, the shepherd boy who was overlooked even in his own father's house. The Messiah is called the root of David and the offspring of David at once, for he is both the source from which the line springs and the fruit that the line produces. There shall come forth a rod from the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. Isaiah 11:1. This is why the bride, in her deepest identity, is not Judah exalted over the nations, but the most humble of Judah, the contrite remnant refined in the furnace of suffering. Judah has built and lost many kingdoms across the centuries, has been the trampled and the despised, in India, in Australia, in the Americas, in every land of her scattering, the man of sorrows, acquainted with grief, despised and rejected of men. And it is precisely this people, formed in suffering, whom God has prepared to become the support and the supply of glory for all the peoples of the earth. The roots are not seen, they are underground, unglamorous, trodden upon, but the whole tree stands because of them. This is the mystery of the bride, that the most humble become the deepest support, that the suffering of centuries was the slow forming of a root strong enough to bear the weight of unimaginable glory. To stand at the marriage supper, the bride must be changed. The body of dust cannot inherit what God has prepared. It must put on a body that cannot decay. Paul describes this transformation with great precision, not the abolition of the body, but its glorification. The body is sown in corruption, it is raised in incorruption. It is sown in dishonor, it is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness, it is raised in power. It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. 1 Corinthians 15. The spiritual body is not a ghost. It is more solid than the body of dust, not less. We know this because we are shown it. After the resurrection, when the disciples had shut themselves away behind locked doors, Jesus came and stood among them, in a body that could pass through walls, and yet still be touched, still bear the wounds, still eat with them. He invited Thomas to prove it with his own hands. My Lord and my God. This is the body the bride will receive, the same kind of glorified, incorruptible body in which the risen Christ appeared, a body capable of intimacy with God beyond anything the flesh can hold, and capable of the power that intimacy carries. The transformation is total, and it is the gateway to everything else in this chapter. What follows, the conduit of worship, the sustenance of the kingdom, the inheritance of power, all of it belongs to this new body, and is impossible to the old. Chapter 10 described the cascade of worship as doctrine, from the nations to Judah, through Judah to the Father. But the Lord did not leave this as doctrine only. In a vision, he gave it from the inside, what it is, to be the vessel through whom worship passes. In the vision, the visionary was taken to a place like a garden, surrounded by beautiful living beings he could sense, but not clearly see. His own heart was tied to everything around him, so that he knew their thoughts and feelings with perfect accuracy. Any movement of anger or wrath, anything other than gentle holiness, could wound them within. He understood that he held in that place what seemed to be unlimited power, and so he dared not move carelessly. The beings around him were all, continually, expressing worship to God, and that worship came into him like a river, filling him. Then a great light approached, and he knew it was the Lord, and behind the Lord, in the same radiance, the Father, who was perfect love. And as the Lord arrived, all the worship that had flowed into him went out of him, without his effort, without his striving, straight into Jesus. He worshiped too, with everything in him. And when the Lord had received that worship, he spoke, and what came out of his mouth was like beautiful light that flowed back through the visionary to all of creation, to the beings in the place around him. Worship in, the Lord blessed, his word out, as light, to all. What felt like 15 minutes had taken only seconds. For of him, and through him, and to him, are all things, to whom be glory forever. Romans 11:36. This is the cascade of chapter 10, seen from within the conduit. The bride is most herself, not when worship rests on her, but when it passes cleanly through her. When the nations bring their worship, and Judah does not hold it, does not keep it, does not use it to establish her own glory, but passes it whole, undimmed, unfiltered to Christ, and when his word flows back through her as light to all creation, that is when the function is complete. That is when the bride fulfills everything the suffering was preparing her for. Not a throne to sit upon, a channel to be, the most transparent vessel of the God who is the source and the end of everything. The Father scattered, the Father preserved, the Father gathered, the Father refined, all of it, for this. The most humble of Judah, the ones who were told they were nothing, the ones who were stripped of their names, and their languages, and their families on the auction block, carrying, in their bodies, the covenant marker that God wrote into their cells, raised in incorruption, raised in glory, raised in power, standing at the center of the kingdom, not demanding, not grasping, but pouring every stream of the nation's worship up to the Lamb who was slain, and receiving back the answering light of his word. The conduit does not keep what flows through it. It is ennobled by the passing. In the body of dust, life is sustained from below, by meat and grain and the slow labor of turning the perishable into strength. The natural body must eat, because it is always dying and must be continually rebuilt. But the glorified body is not dying, and so it is not sustained from below. It is sustained from above. Its glory, its strength, its very life flow down from God himself, the way light flows from the sun to the leaf. This is why the conduit matters so deeply for the life of the kingdom, and not for worship only. In the millennial reign there will be an interdependence among the redeemed, an ordered flow of spiritual sustenance from God through his bride to all the peoples grafted in. Judah, prepared by centuries of suffering to carry the deep things of the Spirit, will supply from her spiritual depth what Ephraim and the nations receive. Not because Judah is the source, God alone is the source, but because God has appointed the humble root to be the channel through which his provision reaches the whole tree, and the lesson is in the dependence itself. The kingdom is not a place where each stands alone, self-supplied. It is one body, where the eye needs the hand, and the head supplies them all, where the deepest member serves the highest, and the highest honors the deepest. The interdependence teaches what isolation never could, that no part of the redeemed creation lives to itself, that all sustenance is gift, and that the gift flows along the channels of humble love. With the glorified body comes power, the power the Lord spoke of when he told his disciples that faith could move a mountain into the sea. That power is the bride's inheritance, and it is real. But such power could not be entrusted to a proud heart. In the hands of one still ruled by self, the ability to reshape creation by a word would be ruin. This is why the long humbling of Judah was mercy and not only judgment, and why the whole kingdom is given only to those who have become like children. Power of that magnitude can be safely given only to the safe, to the meek, who will use it as the Lord uses it, for blessing, never for vengeance. Here then is the deepest reason for everything this book has traced about Judah's suffering. It was not punishment beyond her brothers. It was never a debt that Ephraim and Manasseh now owe her in America or anywhere else. It was preparation. God disciplined the line of promise harder and longer because he was forming a vessel able to hold glory beyond comprehension without being destroyed by it, able to receive the intimacy and the power of the risen Christ and pour it out again cleanly for the blessing of all. A people who learn that cannot afford to spend the eve of the kingdom in retaliation. To strike back at Ephraim now would be to refuse the very lesson the suffering was meant to teach, and to grasp at a crown that is given only to the empty hand. So the bride makes herself ready, not by demanding what she is owed, but by laying it down, not by seizing power, but by becoming the kind of heart that can be trusted with it. And when she is ready, humbled, glorified, and clothed in white, she will take her place at the marriage supper of the Lamb. The root of David made the bride of David's Lord. The the conduit through whom the worship of every tribe and tongue ascends, and through whom his answering glory returns as light to all the world. Chapter 14 has brought every river to the sea, the division of the kingdom, the two dispersions, the long migrations, the convergence, the dispensational architecture, the humbling, the warning against pride. All of it was always moving toward this, a wedding. The root of David made the bride of David's Lord, the conduit of glory, the empty hand that inherits the kingdom, the vessel that pours every stream of the nation's worship to the Lamb, and receives back the light of his answering word. Let us be glad and rejoice and give him glory, for the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his wife has made herself ready, and to her it was granted to be arrayed in fine linen, clean and bright, for the fine linen is the righteous acts of the saints. Revelation 19:7-8. The suffering was preparation, the humbling was mercy, the scattering was placement, the preservation was covenant faithfulness, and the harvest, the marriage, the conduit of glory, is the destination that every chapter of this book was always walking toward. One final word remains, the conclusion: one fold, one shepherd, where every thread is drawn together, where the invitation is extended, where the shepherd calls and the fold forms, and the rivers arrive at the sea they were always meant to reach. One seed, two families, one wedding, one shepherd. Come near, the table is set.